Okay, so I was asked to sort of talk about what I might do with the FM3 or the HX Stomp to kind of get a tone I like at the Lonestar models. So that's what I've done. So that's what you'll see. I'll just play each clip and then I'll show you exactly what's going on within the actual layout. Very straightforward presets for both of them. Generally with this sort of thing I try and not fight the actual sound of whatever's coming out. So here's what I've set up for the clean. Input drives at 4, so actually clean. The bass I've had to bring down a little bit to try and combat some of the sort of low end woofiness. Mids are at 4.8. Trebles I've upped a bit to 6.96 and the master is at 5. The level I've brought to -3.5 and the presence is at 1.9. You could also bring up that presence a little bit more if you want some more of that kind of tube zinginess. Then cab wise, because we can easily load 2 cabs within the FM3, I thought we might as well. So I've gone for the 4x12 Rumble 913, and that's with the condenser mic that we used before. But what I've also done is added in this free own hammer IR that I use for a lot of things, and that's kind of got a bit more presence in it as well. And I thought that kind of added to the tone in some way. You could obviously experiment with that. And I've kept that cab the same for the drive channel as well. So the drive settings are, okay, the input drive is at 3.9, the overdrive is at 7.63, so I've pushed that up a bit because I sort of noticed the actual Lonestar has a bit more gain than either model was getting me. The bass I've brought to 4.69, the mids are at 5.9, and the treble is at 6.53. And the presence I've upped a bit from where I've actually got it on the amp to 6.59. Master volume's at 5, and then level is at -27.7 because there's quite a jump up in volume I found. So that's the settings there. And then aside from that, I've just got a spring reverb, which is set on the large spring. And yeah, these are the settings, 20% mix. A Lonestar likes reverb is what I found. So yeah, those are the settings on the FM3. I think it's a pretty usable tone even like that, and we've got plenty of CPU left to do stuff, so that's a positive. HX Stomp, there's a slightly different kind of vibe going on. So what I've done is, instead of like in the FM3 we can do the channels thing, in the HX Stomp generally we'd have to have two different presets, I guess, but what I've done is just stuck both of the amps in the same signal chain with one cab and one reverb, and we can just about do that. Obviously DSP wise this is fairly intensive because we're running two fairly intensive amp models together in the same signal chain, but one is bypassed. Anyway, for this it kind of works fine, but if you wanted to add more effects to it, this would not be the optimal way to go. You probably want to just take out one of those altogether, and then, you know, you've got space free to do things like delay and reverb and all those bits and pieces. So channel 1, I've got drive at 4, bass at 4.7, mids at 4.8, treble at 6.1, presence at 1.9, channel volume at 5, master at 5. I don't generally mess around with these other settings too much, but you could turn up the sag if you wanted to get some of that kind of compressing amp feel, but I felt like this model was fairly good as it is. And then the drive channel, which is on snapshot 2, I've got the drive at 4.2 and 6.5, the bass at 5, the mids at 6.3, the treble at 5.7, and the channel volume at 3.5. Shape thick, presence at 5 in the mid, and the master's down at 3. And again, those settings there are the same as what they would have been. And then reverb, cab wise, I've got the 2x12 interstate with a 47 condenser at 1 inch, no low cut, no high cut, no reflections. You could turn up those reflections, I guess, if you wanted to get some of that, well, more amp in the room kind of vibe, maybe. And now 63 spring, that's just on its default settings. So both relatively simple presets. This is my philosophy. Generally, if you're having to do too much in the way of EQing or anything like that, probably there's a better choice of IR out there for you for that particular sound. Or maybe you're fighting like the actual amp sound itself. You know, if you're having to do loads to it, maybe you don't like the way a Lonestar actually sounds. And that's completely fair, that's completely reasonable. There are different amps for different tastes and different jobs. That's kind of my philosophy on this. Maybe don't try and fight the sound that's coming out too much. You know, if you're finding it a bit woofy in the bass, by all means, you know, you could take off some of the bass, or if you're finding it a bit thin, add in some bass. You're not really going to turn a Lonestar into a Vox or whatever, you know. So maybe I don't think it's necessarily worth spending too much time kind of trying to turn a sound into something drastically different, if that makes sense. That's my philosophy on it. It's probably a stupid one, but that is what I kind of think. So those are the two tones that I used in this video. You can grab them in the description if you want to, but there's no reason you couldn't easily just recreate that yourself anyway. Anyway, thank you for stopping by, and yeah. Does either of these sound like a Lonestar? A smidge, maybe. I think the FM3 has a tendency to have sort of more body to it, more weight to it potentially. You know, I think that's mostly down to the low end. And I think this has got a bit more kind of brightness and zinginess, that kind of tube thing that I think of. But yeah, maybe your view differs, maybe your ears are hearing it differently. Both, I think, super usable, obviously, but definitely slightly different. But that's okay, because that's what this video is about.